All right, hello guys. Little disclaimer: if you're watching this while eating lunch, you might want to stop one of those activities. All right. This is our lamb heart dissection. I've set up a dissection station at my place, and I brought two because I always order extra anyway. So I brought two of our specimens home in a dissection kit with us to kind of get an idea of what a heart truly looks like. Because sometimes when we look at diagrams, they're like super easy to read and easy to understand and color coordinated. In reality, though, that's not what a heart truly looks like. They're not always as perfect as we expect, nor are they ever exactly the same from one specimen to another. So I brought two different hearts because not every heart is perfect. Some are better than others. Oh, I feel like that's a life lesson. Okay. And so if you take a look, these are sheep hearts. And one of the reasons why I choose sheep hearts is because the sheep heart is the most close to a human heart. Okay, so just like the human heart that has four chambers, your sheep heart will also have four chambers. It'll also have very similar valve structures between the bicuspid and tricuspid, and it's even about the same size. All right, so I have the camera kind of really zoomed out here, but if you look at my fist, okay, it's about the same size as what a human heart would be. Because remember, your human heart, the heart itself is about one fist size, and then the pericardium, that wrapping around it, is like a fist plus your other hand wrapped over it. Okay. So one of these hearts is a little more healthy than the others. So if you take a look here, now you do see this yellow tissue on both of them. And from our tissue chapter, this yellow tissue is actually fat. It's adipose tissue. Okay, so both of them have a little bit of fat on them, which is actually pretty normal for your mammals. Okay, because adipose tissue does help to supply like energy. It also can help with like the protection part of this as well. So it kind of acts as like a cushioning, especially since this thing's going to be wedged between like your two lungs and your heart, or not your heart, your two lungs and your rib cage. Okay, but obviously this one has far less fat tissue than this one. This one, you see a large amount of fat tissue around the edge, okay, all the way up here. And also the size of this heart compared to this one, okay, while similar, there is a significant difference between this one and this one. This one is larger. So this one probably came from a larger, maybe chunkier sheep than the one over here, okay. Now, one of the reasons why I grabbed two, okay, because we would experience this even in class, some of your hearts would be better than others. So if you take a look at the top of this heart, so this is the head sheep would be pointing like towards you guys. This is where all the vessels are. And you can see it's really hard to see some of these vessels. So like you see this one, it's gross. You see this one, which is going to be like your aorta, all right? And then we've got a pulmonary vein, okay, going out here. But the rest of it, there should be several other holes in here. However, they are really hard to find. If I poke around, I could probably find them, okay? But with all this fat tissue, it's kind of making it a hard specimen to find. So I'm going to save this one and hope that the inside of this heart is better than the outside of it. Now, some things that you can see on both of these hearts, okay, are these two structures right here. Let's see if I hold it up. There we go. Okay. Now, this structure and this structure, they're kind of the same color, and actually they're these little flaps, so you can actually stick your finger under them, okay? And these flaps are called auricles. They are going to be part of the pericardium, okay? So those things, sometimes they're even nicknamed sheep ears because, well, that's what they kind of look like, and well, we're dissecting a sheep heart, okay? So those things are called auricles right there, okay? Now I'm going to go ahead and cut this one. I already cut this one because I wanted to make sure we had at least one good specimen between these two before I made another like emergency trip to school. But I'm going to go ahead and cut this one. Now remember, the heart is a muscle, okay? And it's really thick, like if you drop it, I hope you heard that big thud over the microphone. All right. So it's a very solid organ, unlike most of the other organs in the human and or sheep body. So when you dissect them, there's actually not much cutting that goes on because it's mainly muscle tissue. And so when you dissect these sheep parts, it's always good. So we're going to cut it so that it opens up kind of like a book. So we're going to go from one of the auricles, make a cut all the way down to the tip of the heart. This is also called the apex of the heart. Okay. And then all the way back up. Okay. So it almost opens like alligator jaws. Okay. What was I gonna say? Okay, but so even though this is called the apex, sometimes this confuses people. The apex is actually at the bottom of the heart. So this part of the heart would be pointing towards like the pelvis of the animal, okay, or the pelvis of the human if this were a human heart. All right. So when you go in, it's not a very like technical dissection. Okay, you're gonna go all the way through until you reach the tip. There we go. And all the way back up. Now I know there are definitely going to be parts that I need to cut deeper. So when we start to open this up, we're going to find that we probably didn't make it all the way through. That's how thick this muscle actually is. And we'll see how we look inside. Not bad. Not the best heart I've ever seen in my whole life, but I'm fairly happy with that. Okay. All right. So when we open up this heart, okay, and this is what human hearts look like as well on the inside. When we open up this heart, okay, it looks a little lopsided at first, almost like we didn't make a straight cut. Okay. I'm going to see if I can bring it up a little closer to the screen. And so what we see, okay, you have to think there's 4 chambers, but we've cut them in half. So there's going to be a right and a left side. And remember, rights and lefts are always sometimes difficult in anatomy. If you remember, the right side of the heart is the part that has the deoxygenated blood to it, and it is going to lead into the lungs. So it doesn't have to be very big, nor does it have to be very strong because it's pumping the blood right next door. The left-hand side of the heart, however, is going to have to pump the blood all the way back down to your toes, okay? And then have enough force to continue to push that blood all the way back up against the force of gravity and into and back to the heart. Okay, so the left side is going to have to be a lot bigger and a lot stronger. So if you take a look, okay, this is actually our left side of the heart, all right? And then this is the right side of the heart. Okay, now you can tell the difference because look at how I got forceps. Yes, I did. Okay, it's like MacGyver dissection time over here. All right, so look at how thin this wall is. Make sure we're in focus. Okay, nice thin wall. All right, and then look at this big monster wall over here. Okay, this is like almost an inch thick, while this is maybe a centimeter. Okay, so that alone is going to tell me that this is going to be the left-hand side while this is the right-hand side. So if I'm holding the sheep heart like this, yes, technically this is my left side, but if I'm looking at this like if it were in a human chest, like if you were the doctor doing surgery, okay, this would technically be the right side. All right, so you always want to make sure if you ever become a doctor, you know your rights from lefts because in anatomy, it's not always easy. All right, so the middle part right here that divides the right and left side, okay, that's our septum that we talked about in our last video. Okay, so there's the septum of our heart. And we're going to go ahead and look at some of these. So let's start on the right side. And I'll do my best to make sure you can see this clearly. The right side of the heart, okay, so remember here's the top, okay, and the chambers we find at the top are called atria or atrium if we're talking about them singular. So if we look right here, okay, there's a chamber and that is actually your right atrium. Now remember we've cut it in half, okay, which is why it looks a little strange. Now we've got a valve. See this little flappy doohickey thing right here? Flap, flap, flap. There it is. All right, that's going to be our tricuspid valve because it's on the right-hand side. That valve allows for blood to go from the atrium into this chamber, which looks like a V, which is handy for remembering because that's your right ventricle. Okay, looks kind of like a V. Right? Now, once the blood gets into the right ventricle, it's going to pump it out of the heart to the lungs via pulmonary arteries. So I'm actually going to show you the pulmonary artery on the other heart I have because it's better. The pulmonary artery is going to take it to the lungs, which would be like right next door. Okay. The lungs say, let's get rid of all that carbon dioxide you're carrying and gather up all the oxygen. The oxygen is going to be picked up from the lungs, and then it's going to come back to the heart. And it's going to come back to the heart through the pulmonary veins. Now, the pulmonary veins, okay. Where did it go? Okay. Now, the pulmonary veins are going to come into the left atria, and this sheep has a bad pulmonary. Yep. Okay. We'll show you that on that one on the other one too. But we're going to go ahead and come in through the pulmonary veins, okay, because blood comes back to the heart in veins, and it's going to end up in the left atria. Now, this one's kind of nice. Okay, oops. I'll make sure I'm holding it correct. So our left is actually on the human's left. So if you look, there's this big old chamber right here. Okay, this big empty space, that's actually the atria. And this membrane-like thing, that's actually the bicuspid valve. The bicuspid valve, we'll talk about this tomorrow too, is the valve that needs to be replaced the most in the human body whenever someone has a valve replacement, because it's on the left-hand side of the heart, it's under a lot more pressure than the tricuspid or the aortic or pulmonary. Okay, then the blood's going to go through this valve into the left ventricle. Now, it's not quite as spacious as the right one, okay, because of the muscle tissue here. And with the health of this sheep, my guess is there was a lot of strain being put on the heart because of all this fat tissue, which is why it's always important to take care of yourself and make sure that you don't get overweight, because all this fat tissue puts a lot of pressure on the heart. And because of all that pressure and unhealthiness of the sheep here, my guess is that's why this muscle is so big, because it was being under so much stress. So it actually caused the left ventricle to not develop as well as it can be. So here's your left ventricle. Okay, when the blood gets here, it's going to take the blood and push it back out towards the top of the heart, in through the one I know we can find, or out through, the aorta, okay, which is going to be your main vessel here. Okay, the aorta does have several branches to it. You can actually see I'm going through one of the branches. Okay, so my probe's coming out here. Okay, but there's the other main trunk of the aorta, right where that my finger is. Okay. All right, so I do want to show you how blood flows. Man, I hate 15-minute time limits. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead, stop this video, okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and start another one so I can actually show you how some of the blood flows through the heart. So I will go ahead, pause here. Hope you guys are doing good. See you next video.